Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. We made it. It's the weekend. I'm excited. I want to just get right into today's show. Is Scap ready? Jay Skapinac, welcome to the show. I'm going to slice and dice Jay Skapinac here in a second, but I do want to stick around. I am going to talk about the Indiana Fever losing last night and what that meant. There's been some backlash to the Barbie Brawl, a little hangover for the Barbie Brawl, and I can't figure out. I was debating what I was more excited about, or what was my number one emotion last night: the Pacers forcing Game 7, or the Indiana Fever losing on the road in a regular season game at Golden State. And I ended up landing on the Pacers winning and forcing a Game 7 because it gave me the opportunity to come on this show and tell Jay Skapinac that he's full of BS, that the Pacers are going to win this NBA title. And they're going to win this NBA title because, as I've been saying for quite some time, Rick Carlisle, despite his mistakes in Game 5, has been the best coach in the NBA for 2 decades now. He has outsmarted the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's figured out how to use T.J. McConnell and Tyrese Halliburton at the same time. And so when they go to Game 7 in OKC on Sunday, I expect that combination, and they only may play 10, 15 minutes together in OKC, but the combination of McConnell at the point and Halliburton off the ball, the Pacers will be winning Game 7. This isn't shtick. This isn't fandom. When McConnell's in the game, he adds an energy and a pace, and he creates shots for others. He knocks down shots. Last night, what we saw, the Pacers won by 17, but they controlled that game. It really wasn't that close. Jay Skapinac, I know you're going to come on here arrogantly and talk about how confident you are that OKC will win Game 7. But the reality is, Jay, you're scared, you're nervous. You know that there is a real possibility the Pacers could win Game 7 and win this NBA title. Your thoughts?
Jason, I am here with you. I don't know how I get pigeonholed into being this Oklahoma City Thunder apologist. I am rooting for the Pacers. I don't like the Thunder. They annoy the ever-loving hell out of me because they are historically talented, historically gifted, with an unbelievable roster, an unbelievable top 3, an unbelievable bench, and yet they continue to exude utter classlessness in their approach to a multitude of games throughout this playoff run. They disgust me, Jason. I'm sickened by them. I certainly do hope that their classlessness and the way that they show up, ill-prepared and pretty much just undetermined to play in these games at all from the tip. I mean, I wanted to catch up to them. I want them to get burned and to learn a lesson. But again, I don't think that they will because they are just that good. It's not arrogance, Jason. It's disgust. I don't want this to be the case. I don't want a team to be able to no-show half of the playoff games they play in an entire run and get, an NBA championship, get rewarded with a title at the end of it. I hope I'm wrong. I've been saying since September that this team was going to win. I don't see anything that has changed my mind. Look, they were in a Game 7 against Denver. Denver handily won their Game 6. Not anyway what Indiana did last night. That was a humiliation, Jason. I'm not surprised that the Pacers won. To your point, 17, that doesn't do anything. That's nowhere near an indication to how big of a beating that was. They were up 30 at the end of the third. It was 90-60. Just an utter classless performance yet again by the Oklahoma City Thunder. But Jason, it's not going to matter in Game 7. The Thunder will win a home Game 7. They are, I believe, 7.5-point favorites at this time.
I don't think in all of your conversation there, you're giving the Pacers near enough credit. Between McConnell, Obi Toppin, what Halliburton was able to give, what Nembhard was able to give. That was a Pascal Siakam, if the Pacers win Game 7, the no-look pass from Halliburton to Pascal Siakam will be one of the all-time great moments in NBA Finals history. That's the great. I didn't do the research. I didn't think about it. That's the greatest poster dunk in NBA Finals history. The no-look pass from Halliburton, and you know what? I should have asked for this. There are people criticizing Mike Breen's call of that dunk. I don't know if you've seen that on social media. People are saying I didn't have a problem with his call, but other people are. And when I think about it in context, like this is one of the great moments in NBA Finals history, and ESPN and Mike Breen, in my view, having to work with Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson, they just blew it. They didn't make enough of that moment, in my view, during the actual game action. I didn't have a real problem with the call, but I get why people are being critical. But I just don't think you're giving the Pacers enough credit. I get that perhaps OKC's effort was kind of mailed in, but I also think OKC, Jalen Williams and SGA are great players. Chet Holmgren is a very, very good player. Where's the rest of all this greatness where they so outclass the Pacers? I don't see it.
Jason, look, I think in the postseason, we've seen, particularly in this series, it's odd though. In the first series and the third series they played, being Oklahoma City, they absolutely eviscerated their opponents in the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. And quite frankly, to me, the Timberwolves are the best. I think the Timberwolves are the most talented team they faced in their entire playoff run. They destroyed them. They won every game by 15 to 30 points that they won. They beat the Timberwolves 4-1 in that series. I just don't understand what the game plan is most of the time for them. I don't understand what the substitution patterns are for Mark Daigneault. They had a historically great bench in the regular season. I just don't understand what he's doing half the time throughout this postseason run. Jason, I know what you're saying with the playoffs, but the regular season in the NBA historically is a very firm and solid predictor of postseason success. And it's just not bearing out in this series. The Thunder are one of the 5 greatest regular season teams ever by any metric, any which way you want to slice it. I don't know what to tell you. The Pacers were a mediocre team in the regular season. This would be the most improbable NBA champion of my lifetime. I know you think I'm extremely young, but I've been watching every game of these playoffs for about 30 years now. This would be unprecedented. I don't really know what else to say, and I don't think it's going to happen. It has been a great performance though by the Pacers.
Is there a chance, because I think it's since January 1, I think is the stat I've heard and seen talked about, that the Pacers were clearly the second best team in the NBA, the closing stretch of the season. And that, again, is where I'm thinking you have underestimated the Pacers. And what we've just seen is if you remove the first 25, 30 games of the season and you just evaluate the Pacers on the second half of the regular season and into these playoffs, that perhaps this is an ascending team that is just figuring itself out. And again, maybe they're not as good as OKC over the course of the entire season. But right now, at this point, June 18th, 19th, 20th, they are as good as the Oklahoma City Thunder because they have a coaching advantage in Rick Carlisle. I've seen this before. I saw it with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. I wasn't as firm this time, but I was sitting out there firmly in 2000, like, hey, the Dallas Mavericks, they're going to beat the Miami Heat. They're going to win the title. I was saying this at the beginning of the playoffs. I wasn't as in tune with this Pacer team, but as I've watched these playoffs play out, I think you're still underestimating the Pacers, and you're judging OKC solely off the entire 82-game season, and you're not looking at what have the Pacers done in the last 35, 40 games of the regular season and in this postseason.
I think you draw a good correlation to 2011 because I'd say this would be the biggest upset maybe in all of sports since 2011 in that Mavericks Heat series that you keep referencing. An obvious reference point because Rick Carlisle is the coach on both teams. And to me, again, we are 15 years removed now from that series, and my primary takeaway from that series still, Jason, look, it is a great run by the Dallas Mavericks. Not simply beating the Heat in that final series, but look at the teams they went through in the Western Conference. Still, though, my principal takeaway from that year will forever and always be the pants-pooping epic session of LeBron James in the finals, the total and unmitigated gag job by the Miami Heat will forever be the principal storyline, in my opinion, of that final series. It's not like, oh, Dallas was unbeatable or Dallas had a great game plan. I think really fondly about the run, but primarily it's a negative commentary about the Heat. That, too, is how I will think about this finals run if the Oklahoma City Thunder finishes off the choke job in Game 7 at home. That's how I will be thinking about SGA for the rest of time that he's in the NBA and this Oklahoma City Thunder team. It's no discredit to your Pacers or the Dallas Mavericks that year. It's just that teams do not always win things. Sometimes their opponent just loses.
That, to me, is an offensive takeaway from what we're seeing from the Pacers. Seriously, I say that. You watch that T.J. McConnell, that was not luck. He did it the game before. He came in and did it again last night during because he missed some shots late when the game was over. But when the game actually mattered, and he came very effective. Obi Toppin, I don't think that's a fluke. I think he's one of the best. What is he, like the 7th man for the Pacers? 8th man for the Pacers? He's one of the best off-the-bench guys, athletic, can defend all 5 positions in this series, knock down the open threes. I even like the misses because he missed some tough twos. This Pacer, Mathurin hasn't even been that good since he had 27 points maybe in Game 1, I think. Hasn't even been that good. The Pacers are a really, really deep, diverse team. And Halliburton, gutty last night. He's not 100%. Knocked down some big shots. So it was very common. What did he start out the game? 0 of 5 from the field. And I was like, hey, get this guy out of here.
Jason, let me do this real quick. Let me ask you a question.
Giving the Pacers enough credit. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Your knowledge or experience with the NBA obviously predates mine. In your relevant lifetime of watching this stuff and experiencing NBA playoffs, is it generally, like the deeper, well-formulated benches that win these championships, or the upper echelon star power and talent? Generally, like the great individual players or tandems of players, like by and large throughout NBA history, that are most successful in the postseason, would you say?
Here's what I would say, Skap. Generally speaking, it's the most talented players, because by the time they reach the NBA Finals, they're paired with an elite coach. I don't think that's the case here. I think that SGA, I have been, to be honest, I've been very impressed with him. He can get his shot off, and they certainly let him push off in a way that makes it easier for him to get his shot. But I like SGA a lot. I don't have a problem with him winning MVP this season, even though Nikola Jokic was probably the most valuable player. Been very I'm impressed with Jalen Williams. I just think there's a coaching disparity that this 65-year-old Rick Carlisle is at the top of his game. He's been at the top of his game for a long time. He's some weirdo that got ran out of Detroit and because he wears on players and he's got a unique personality. But once again, he's in peak Rick Carlisle form, and he's just using his pieces better than Mark Dangold. And I'm not really surprised that this is happening. And so I do think, take Eric Spoelstra when the Heat were winning. That was a great coach paired with great talent. Obviously, Popovich and Tim Duncan. Obviously, the only example, Steve Kerr with the team he had in Golden State. The only place where a mediocre or not elite level coach, LeBron James. because he coaches his own team. But other than that, from Kobe Bryant and Phil Jackson and Shaq to Kobe Bryant and Paul Gasol and why can't I think of the other big man, Andrew Bynum, or obviously Michael, Scotty, and Phil. Generally speaking, the great players are paired with great coaches. We have a situation here where that maybe isn't the case, and it's getting exposed.
But Jason, the disparity in the upper line star power in this is absolutely startling. If you look, to say it's not surprising, it is. It's outright shocking because, and this is where even it eschews your previous comparison point, the 2011 series. I mean, yes, the Heat were drastically, I think, had the drastic advantage in talent discrepancy, but Dallas still had an all-time great player in Dirk Nowitzki, who was still kind of in prime MVP form there. We're talking about he's a 12-time All-NBA selection player, league MVP. He's 6th all-time in NBA history in scoring, Jason. He is a legendary top 15 to 20 all-time player. So the Mavericks still did have that. In my lifetime, basically, of watching this, which is essentially early 90s to now, you would have to go back. The only reference you can make is probably the 2004 Pistons beating the Lakers, which there was a lot of things going on in that series.
Who was the coach? Who was the coach?
Larry Brown, a great coach.
There you go.
But look, they had Kobe and Shaq, fine. Karl Malone gets hurt. Their third leading scorer in that series, Jason, was Derek Fisher at 6 points per game on 30% shooting from the field. And the Pistons did it while they had no-name guys offensively. Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Billups were their two best offensive players. Chauncey won Finals MVP. That obviously looks like what we're seeing now. But the Pistons that year were the best defense of this century. They held the Lakers to 80 points. We're not seeing that effort by the Pacers defensively. There's no way to describe what we're seeing. Jason, Pascal Siakam now, as we stand on the precipice of a Game 7, Pascal Siakam is leading the team in scoring at under 20 per game. 19.8 points per game now in 6 games for Siakam. The second leading scorer is Tyrese Halliburton at 14.8. That is their star, their only star who is a third-team All-NBA selection. He's not even a top 10 current league-wide player, and he's averaging under 15 per game. And it's not like he's 13, 15 assists, 6.8 assists per game. So, that's what their superstar is doing, and yet they're still in a Game 7, despite not, a terrific defensive effort on their behalf. There's no way, shape, or form to describe or quantify what we're seeing based on all the past precedents of, 30 years in the NBA. This would be the most improbably shocking outcome that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I think if I have to look across all sports, Jason, in my lifetime, probably when the greatest show on turf Rams were going for their second Super Bowl in 3 years in 2001 with that year's league MVP Kurt Warner, the previous year's league MVP in Marshall Faulk, 2 Hall of Fame wide receivers, a great defense that season. They got stopped up by an unknown, a barely drafted first-year starter in some unknown kid, Tom Brady, as 14-point underdogs in the freaking Super Bowl. That would probably be the biggest upset still I've ever seen. This, to me, would eclipse that.
One of the points you made that I love, and we're going to wrap here and I'm going to move on, but one of the points you made that I loved, you referenced the Detroit Pistons under Larry Brown. There have been 2 NBA head coaches who I have absolutely adored and thought hey man, these guys really are the best coaches I've seen in the NBA. And it was Larry Brown and Rick Carlisle. And I'm not even trying to take a shot at Phil Jackson or Greg Popovich. I am taking a shot at Steve Kerr, but I'm not trying to take a shot at those guys, very good coaches. But they got paired with some all-time great talents. And then sometimes, Larry Brown, Allen Iverson, and that garbage Philadelphia 76ers team. Everywhere Larry Brown went, amazing things happened in basketball. Danny Manning and the Miracles. Everywhere Larry Brown went, he made basketball miracles happen. Same thing with Rick Carlisle. And it's not as sexy to talk about. It's not, people, it's obviously there's more traction in talking about the players and celebrating them. But there are these weirdo coaches that actually make a difference. And they're usually, people couldn't stand Larry Brown for long stretches. He and Allen Iverson went toe to toe, and because he's so hard on his point guards and so hard on his players. Same thing. I think the guy was like 62 years old when he was in Detroit and worked that magic for the Detroit Pistons. Here's Rick Carlisle at 65 at the top of his craft, an old man working in a league where the players have all the power and all the control. And so he's probably best not to have a superstar who would want to be pampered and a special set of rules. He's got a team that needs him, knows they need him. And so I just don't think there's enough celebration of Rick Carlisle. I'll give you the final thought here. What's your prediction Sunday? 7.5 point spread in favor of OKC. What do you think happens on Sunday?
Well, Jason, in the immortal words of Clubber Lang, pain. That's what I see for your Indiana Pacers. I just don't see any way. Look, I look always often at the beginnings of these kinds of games. The game, it's generally like a feel out process. Probably like there's going to be tightness on both sides of the ball, I think, in the first quarter. And look, in the Denver series, which has gone exactly the way this Pacers series has gone. The Nuggets won exactly the same games in that series to force a Game 7 that the Pacers have now. The Nuggets were actually up 11 points early in that Game 7 at Oklahoma City before it was like an 18-point margin for the Thunder at halftime. I think, to me, look, the Thunder are going to win this game handily in my estimation. I think they win by double digits. If they don't, if somehow the Pacers can keep it close, then the pressure will mount on the favored team, the team at home. I think home court advantage becomes a disservice then at that point when you're not pulling away, and they should be. So if the Pacers can somehow try to keep this like under 10 at the end of the third, I think they might have a realistic opportunity, but that's just not the way I see it going. I think the Thunder win. I think they win easily.
The other thing I thought last night was if they had played T.J. McConnell in the fourth quarter of Game 5, I would have been celebrating a title last night in Indianapolis. To me, that was clear as day with the way he played in the first half last night. Skap, thank you. I got to let you go. We got to move on to some other things. Caitlin Clark lost last night, and it took a little of the shine off my Pacer victory, and so I got to talk about that. But before I do that, I want to tell you married guys out there, I got a cheat code for you. If you're struggling with your best performances in the bedroom, trying to please your wife, man, BlueChew has a solution for you. It's the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. The erection-enhancing tablets help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer-lasting erections for sexual activities. It's not just about getting hard. It's about staying power. BlueChew is built for both. Guys, be ready when your wife needs it. You're going to have BlueChew. BlueChew's free, or you can get the first month of BlueChew for free. Great sex is just a few clicks away. Sign up at BlueChew.com. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. BlueChew tablets are made in the United States and prepared and shipped directly to your door. The best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. This isn't just about performance, guys. This is about legacy, or the third legacy. When you lay it down with BlueChew, you're not just making memories, you're shifting paradigms. Elevate your bedroom game and become a case study in the evolution. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, your first month of BlueChew is free. Just use the promo code FEARLESS at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join BlueChew's global mission to make better sex the dominant drive of modern society. Head to BlueChew.com for details and safety info. Thank you, BlueChew, for sponsoring this revolution and today's show. When we come back, I got some thoughts on Caitlin Clark and the Fever. The Barbie Brawl, there's been a backlash, and it cost the Fever last night. I'll explain. Next. This is, we love to have conversations about, man, the athletes, the black players, they need to start their own league. They need to start their own league. Who's gonna run it? Who will wanna be involved with it? This is what it would look like, the big three, 8 seasons in, and Steven Jackson, a gang member who will not evolve out of that mentality, who checks in with O-Block when he visits Chicago and other gang territories, who is still the 18-year-old boy he was at age 47. His lack of evolution has been rewarded by the world and the mainstream culture.
Words are our religion, no regrets in our decisions. We all wanna go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
All right, welcome back. So I watched my Pacers force Game 7. Second half of that game, thankfully, it was a blowout, and so I got to multitask because the Fever game tipped off at 9 o'clock, about midway through the third quarter of the Game 6 of the NBA Finals. And so I had to multi-screen. I was watching the Fever on Amazon, and I was following the Pacers on my TV. And I don't want to, before I unpack my thoughts here, I do want to explain that the risk that I'm taking here, and trust me, I get it. And trust me, I'm aware. I can only speak the truth. I can only talk about what I truly believe, and I'm not going to be captured by my audience. And trust me, I hear you all loud and clear. If there is a price to be paid for speaking honestly about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, there are some of you that have put Caitlin Clark as an idol, and you can't handle anyone having an opinion that differs from yours on Caitlin Clark. I'm aware that I'm a Caitlin Clark fan. Many of you come here to hear someone talk positively about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, talk passionately about them. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to remain honest. And so some of you yesterday, or earlier this week, yesterday I believe, when I compared Caitlin Clark to Michael Jordan and said, hey, Michael Jordan got beat up early in his career because players were jealous and he was so much more skilled than everybody else. And this is when there's this kind of skill differential and someone's getting all the attention and setting all kinds of records and electrifying the league, that jealousy, envy, and physicality are going to break out. It happened to Michael Jordan. It's happening to Caitlin Clark. Those are just facts. And I've read some of you in the comments, unfollowed. I can't believe you said this. You said she flopped. I'm just going to have to deal with the consequences because it's what I believe. I love Caitlin Clark. Love her. I got the WNBA League Pass 2 years in a row. I watched the WNBA. I don't know if I've missed a Caitlin Clark basketball game in 2 years. But I'm going to talk honestly. And so at the risk of offending some of you all that have made her an idol, and this show, we don't like idolatry. There are no idols. I criticize myself constantly. Criticize everybody because I'm not an idol. You're not an idol. Caitlin Clark's not an idol. We have one idol. Name's Jesus Christ. So there's been a brawl or a backlash to the Barbie Brawl. And if you follow over social media, some Minnesota Lynx players posted a video criticizing the Indiana Fever for their reaction in not really defending Caitlin Clark in that deal with the Connecticut Sun and J.C. Sheldon and Marina Mabrey. And you know, later in the game, Sophie Cunningham did defend Caitlin Clark or took a pot shot at J.C. Sheldon. But these Minnesota Lynx players, you know, had a different take on what should have happened in real time when Marina Mabrey bumped into Caitlin Clark and Caitlin Clark flopped to the ground. I'm sorry for hurting your feelings, but that's what I think happened. But anyway, here's the Minnesota Lynx players talking about what they would have done if their star player had been knocked to the ground.
Look, they showing them. Look at me.
Player, but cooler heads prevailed.
Hey!
He was up 10 at this point.
Hey, we would have been crashing our team.
Courtney, if somebody ever tackles you like that,
Nobody would ever tackle me like that. They would play with Bridget like that, and then we would have to like take it up there.
okay.
You see what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying that.
Nobody would ever play with me like
If
that.
that ever happened, you better crash out behind me. Because I'm crashing out behind you.
T,
We can share the same jail cell. Yeah, well,
oh my gosh, bro. Our team would crash, bro, because they would play with somebody that's like not even like it would be like they would do that to like Bridget or like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, bro, stop fucking playing with Bridget like that before we run down on some shit.
yeah, fags. Walk
For
them
real.
down.
Walk
Walk
them
them
down.
That is Minnesota Lynx players. Minnesota Lynx, who the Fever will play on July 1st in the Commissioner's Cup Championship. The Minnesota Lynx, who I consider probably the favorite to win the WNBA title this year. That's the team that I'm hoping the Fever face in the WNBA Finals. And they have a completely different tone, roster makeup. I'm just keeping it real about the Minnesota Lynx. And I'm not saying this is preferable, but I'm just saying those two women kind of represent the vibe in Minnesota. It's a, just keeping it, it's a lesbian-based team from their, you know, butch coach to the roster makeup. Nafisa Collier is their star, but it's a tattoo-heavy team, girls that are a little bit rougher. And this is the WNBA. There are many of you all that only watch Caitlin Clark. That's it. If you watch the entire league, there's more of that, what you just saw for the Minnesota Lynx. And basically, they're calling out Aaliyah Boston, Natasha Howard. Like, they're not saying it by name, but the Indiana Fever have two bigs, Aaliyah Boston and Natasha Howard, and they're basically saying, hey, where are y'all? Your star player just got knocked to the ground and is flopping around like she's been killed, and y'all are basically nowhere to be seen. And they have a point. As it relates to Aaliyah Boston, I'm always going to defend Aaliyah Boston. She's not an enforcer, period, end of story. She's a hardcore Christian. She's very feminine, one of the most feminine 6'5", 210-pound, 220-pound women I think you'll ever see in your life. It's just not in her makeup. She's a super nice, emotes love type person. It's not in her personality to be an enforcer. Natasha Howard, tatted neck, tats everywhere, got some wife, whatever. She just said she's not on board in a real way. And if you remember, or I don't know if you remember, but I said over social media, I was like, hey man, y'all need to hold on to this Erica Wheeler. She was their backup point guard from a year ago, little girl, tatted up, big Caitlin Clark supporter. She's like those Minnesota Lynx players. and she had Caitlin Clark's back, and I was like, y'all need to hold on to her because some things are going to pop off, and you're going to need someone like Erica Wheeler to set a tone. Now, they have Sophie Cunningham, the Barbie doll, and she's about that life. She's going to defend Caitlin Clark, but this team, the reaction from her teammates, say something, and even if DeWanna Bonner had been here, she's on leave of absence, but she ain't really about protecting Caitlin Clark. As much as Sophie Cunningham is being celebrated, and I think she should be celebrated for being an enforcer and for having the back of Caitlin Clark and stepping up and being the enforcer on this team. Sophie's got a black belt in Kung Fu since she was like 5 or 6 years old. She's not afraid. But as much as she's getting, this overall team isn't fully on board with Caitlin Clark. I'm talking about Natasha Howard. I'm talking about Nylisa Smith from last year, who should have been an enforcer for Caitlin Clark. There are players, even within the Indiana Fever, maybe some of it out of racial jealousy, but also some of it out of like, hey, Caitlin Clark does too much flopping. She's a bit of a drama queen. She talks a lot of smack. She heightens the intensity of the opponents and likes to pick fights and then run away. And I'm just telling you, these are the facts. I love Caitlin Clark, but these are the facts. She's a hot dog. And some of her teammates aren't fully on board with her, and it showed up last night. Caitlin Clark has a terrible game. I think 0 of 7 from three-point line, ends up only scoring 7 points. But if you watch the game, Caitlin's emotion, energy, all of that just wasn't there. She wasn't her normal self. There's a backlash to the Barbie Brawl. That Caitlin Clark found out, like, hey, Sophie Cunningham has my back. Lexi Hall, to the best of her ability, has my back. But the rest of this team, they're a bit indifferent. And I think that has depressed Caitlin Clark, and that's why she was so terrible last night. And they lost to the expansion Golden State Valkyries. 4 of Golden State's players are overseas right now playing in the Eurobasket 2025. 4 Golden State players, I think 1 or 2 of their starters are overseas playing. This is an expansion team. And they beat the Indiana Fever last night with their backups and a shortened roster or a makeshift roster because 4 of their players are overseas playing basketball someplace else and will return after this Eurobasket tournament is over. Kelsey Mitchell, who great scorer, great player, likes Caitlin Clark, but she's not like those Minnesota Lynx players. And she's not scared, but she's not like those Minnesota Lynx players. Kelsey Mitchell, she called the Indiana Fever soft last night, and they were. Play the clip.
Overall, it's not about just Caitlin specifically. I thought it was about our entire group. We were soft. We just weren't. They made us pay by just being stronger, being tougher, 50-50 balls, deflections, getting the passing lanes. That's just a piece of just being aggressive and having an ability to like look at our best player and be like, nah, they gonna be aggressive. And I think that we allowed it. We kind of tucked our tail a little bit tonight on the aggression side, and I think that's our down play right now.
Soft team. And they've tried to address it. They brought in DeWanna Bonner, but she's gone MIA. She's out for personal reasons. She's missed 3 or 4 of the last games. The head coach last night, she took another leave of absence, Stephanie White. She's whatever her personal problems are. Lisa Salters worked last night. That's Stephanie White's wife. Lisa Salters worked last night, the NBA Finals. Stephanie White, another leave of absence. This is a soft team. The head coach has taken 2 leaves of absence in what are we, a month into the season? 5-6 weeks into the season, the head coach is taking 2 leaves of absence. They're one of their, probably what they thought may have been their best free agent acquisition, DeWanna Bonner, leave of absence. Natasha Howard, she's going to try to get her numbers, but I don't think she's really on board with the whole Caitlin Clark thing. She's not going to be. And Aaliyah Boston, who I'm telling you I love, and it's just not in her personality. She's too much of a Christian. She emotes too much positive. She's never going to be anybody's enforcer. And even though Kelsey Mitchell's sitting right there, basically calling Aaliyah Boston out. Hey, we were too soft. We weren't aggressive enough. She's never going to be Aaliyah Boston. It's not in her personality, and I would hate to, Anyway, the Fever lost last night because the Barbie Brawl helped Caitlin Clark see, like, hey, who's really on board with me? And my coach is gone. We just had a brawl, play this whole deal where got this storm going on this team, and the coach is like, I got to take another leave of absence. And look, it may all be legitimate. Someone may have died. I don't know. But this is twice in a 2-week, 10-day span that the head coach has been like, I got something better to do than coach this basketball team. That's soft. That's very soft. DeWanna Bonner, hey, I got some. And if you go read stories about Caitlin Clark and what her problems were in junior high and high school, and this isn't a criticism of what I'm about to say, but what her problems were in junior high and high school is like, she got very frustrated because the game of basketball wasn't as important to her teammates as it was to her. Her teammates played basketball. It's fun, but I really want a prom date. I really want to focus on this or that. And Caitlin Clark was the only one out there that took basketball really, really seriously. And it's my suspicion that Caitlin Clark is like, hey, we got some folks on this team that this isn't a life or death situation for them as it relates to competition and winning every night. We got folks going MIA, taking leaves of absence in the middle of the season. And Caitlin Clark is just a hyper, super competitive, Michael Jordan-esque competitor, and she's looking around, it's like, oh, that's not everybody on this team. And she played with that kind of energy last night. She looked shaken. She looked unsure of herself, and she couldn't get her offense going. And I think she's looking around like, oh, okay. This is kind of like my high school team. There are other priorities other than just being a great basketball team, and it's frustrated her. And they had an awful performance. Caitlin had, 6 or 7 turnovers, shot 3 of 13 or something like that from the field. It was all. I'm not making excuses for her. I'm just telling you what's really going on. I'm giving you a take no one else will give you because, again, they're not watching the WNBA. They're watching highlights, and they're looking at clips over social media. I saw something either this morning or last night where Dave Rubin, the social media influencer, conservative, lives down in Florida, he's putting out comments on Caitlin Clark. And I was like, you think this guy's really watched the WNBA? You think he actually knows what's going on? But the WNBA is just a talking point. And so everybody's got an opinion about Caitlin Clark, and everybody's got an opinion about what went on in this brawl. But the overwhelming majority of the people running their mouths, they're not watching the WNBA. They're watching Caitlin Clark highlights and or half of an Indiana Fever game from time to time. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're witnessing. All right, that's all I want to say about that. I do have some more to say about the WNBA, and I'll let Steve Kim react to what's going on with the Pacers and the Fever. Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell. Next.
Godly men godly husbands and godly fathers will change the course of history. I'll come back. We can do that as a historical discussion. It's reality. The question is, what about our generation? Are we going to be willing to do that? There's an enormous pressure against you to neuter you spiritually, to diminish your reproductiveness, to limit your assertiveness, and it comes from the pit of hell. God has called us to be difference makers in our generation. Your circumstances may be as abhorrent as Daniel's were, but the message that's delivered to Daniel multiple times from an archangel is that you are highly valued in heaven. Folks, if I'm discounted every place else and I'm highly valued in heaven, I'm good.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps and I see that you are 배불러 So
All right, welcome back. Steve Kim. Let's start with my Pacers. And I think we're going to win Game 7. I think T.J. McConnell, the great white hope, has been the missing link here. Your thoughts, do you believe that my Pacers can win Game 7 on Sunday?
I mean, I guess they can. I give them credit. I thought they were dead in the water. I thought, going back to last Friday, that it would dispirit them. They lose Game 5, but they protected their house. I have a question. Should the Pacers pull off the upset, who's the MVP? Is it McConnell?
No.
Really?
No, it's Pascal Siakam at this point.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
It's Pascal Siakam. Yeah. Or Rick Carlisle.
You know, I'm looking at this. If Rick Carlisle can win this as a significant underdog once again, and I heard you and Scap talking about Larry Brown. Larry Brown, one of the great basketball minds. Too bad he was pathological in a lot of his insecurities. It's one thing to pull off one major upset. Like in boxing, Buster Douglas had Mike Tyson. He didn't really do a lot of other great things. Larry Brown only had that one series, as great as he was, right? If Carlisle and this team win Game 7, I think it is past due. You start putting him, I think, in the all-time great conversation. And my argument is this. I'm not saying it's easy to be the captain or the driver of a dynasty, but a lot of those things are automatic pilot. Red Auerbach, Phil Jackson, Pat Riley, right? But when you could take disparate parts and you don't really have what I would call a top 50 all-time player for a full decade, and then to take two different groups of guys the way he did, that's a hell of a resume there, Whitlock, for Carlisle.
It's a great resume, and he and Larry Brown, to me, are the two greatest professional coaches I've ever seen. And I say that, and no offense to Phil Jackson or Red Auerbach, not that I saw Red Auerbach coach. No offense to whoever, Pat Riley, no offense to him, Greg Popovich. Yeah, but that's my sincere belief. Larry Brown, Rick Carlisle, if I had one series to win, I'd take those two guys over anybody else. See, I want to play you the clip of Pascal Siakam at a somewhat critical point of the game, because the Pacers dominated a lot of it. But Halliburton does this no-look pass, and Pascal Siakam has this incredible poster dunk. People are criticizing Mike Breen's call of this sequence. It is, to me, it's one of the great poster dunk moments in NBA Finals history. I don't even know what to compare it to as it relates to NBA Finals. But I just wonder if you're critical of this call by Mike Breen. Let's play the clip.
Jalen Williams, 16 points, throws it away. Halliburton comes up with it. Cross court, Siakam for the slam.
People are ripping Mike Breen, saying he wasn't excited nearly enough.
I mean, it's not terrible. And I like Mike Breen. I think he's been the steadiest member of that current team. I'm not a fan of the other. Well, I'm not a fan of one particular person, but I don't want to pile on her. Don't want to mention any names. I'll be honest with you. That particular call seems very muted. I mean, it's the NBA Finals, elimination game. The crowd is going nuts in Indiana, and he calls it like it's a regular garden variety dunk in February. I don't want to be overly critical, but I don't think it's his best call.
I think 1,000% speculation here. I think he did his call because it kind of comes from out of nowhere. He did his call, and then there was a moment for if Mark Jackson were working next to him, or they would have added the excitement after the dunk. There would have been excited, just shouting and cheers, or just like, oh, it would have been like Joe Rogan. Remember the meme of Joe Rogan? Someone gets knocked out, and Daniel Cormier, Joe Rogan.
Yeah, the reaction right outside
and they just
octagon. I've seen that, yes.
Yeah, that's what that required. It's not just the play-by-play guy. It's the team that should have reacted to that play.
Or you needed a Kevin Harlan. Kevin Harlan said he destroyed the world. I mean, no one could call a dunk, a big emphatic dunk, like two guys, Kevin Harlan and the late, great Francis Dale Chick Hearn. I mean, when you listen to a game on the radio with the Lakers and Worthy swooped in for one of his Statue of Liberty dunks that all look the same, it just felt big. Again, Breen is excellent. I think he's been the steadiest member of that cast. Again, not his best call. Not his best call.
All right. Hey, I'm going to go back to the WNBA and the criticism of Lynx players of Caitlin Clark's teammates for not caping up for her on during the Barbie Brawl incident, or during the belly bump heard around the world that nearly killed Caitlin Clark. This belly bump from Marina Mabrey. Anyway, what do you think of the Lynx players criticizing the Fever for not jumping to Caitlin Clark's defense?
Here's what I think the Indiana Fever management needs to do. Get the names of whoever said that and put it in your mind. We need to get those players. We need to get those type of players. And I heard you talk about the makeup of the team. I was thinking about this. Generally, Jason, when it comes to being the enforcer or the protector of a superstar, it's never really one of the top 2-3 players. Those guys are almost too valuable. They have to be about the 7th or 8th guy that if they take a couple of hard fouls or get kicked out 3 minutes into a game to send a message, game ball. They've done their job, send them home. Give them a little bonus. But I'm just telling you, if I'm the Indiana Fever, I write those names down saying, okay, they're going to be priorities. We're going to try to trade for them. Or, I don't want to be stereotyped, but if they have more tattoos closer to the chest, if they have one near the face, that might be our type of player. Now they may fit again, set it off. We need the Queen Latifah character in Set It Off. So that needs to be the team logo for the Fever next year. Set it off.
Well, I'm going to, now you've got me hunting down, let's see. Look, Charles Oakley, when he established himself as Michael Jordan's enforcer early in Jordan's career, he was a starter. He started in 86, 87, and 87, 88. He started 81 games, and then he started all 82 the next year. And look, Oakley mostly, throughout his whole New York Knicks career, he was a starter while being the enforcer.
No, he was. But look, during that time when he was with the Bulls, I think he was their second leading scorer, and you just kind of knew it wasn't going to work. Charles Oakley was never meant to be the second best offensive player. Now, again, in that stretch of time, for the most part, it was a young Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. They're drafted in 86, 87. If I recall correctly, Oakley was there till about 88, 89 when Jerry Krause made a trade that I don't think Michael Jordan ever forgave him for, traded him to the Knicks for Bill Cartwright. Okay, now that might be, you could say that's an outlier, but again, Charles Oakley as your second best scorer on any team, they're not going to go very far. They're not. Oakley was an excellent NBA player, but he was a bruiser. He was there to play a specific role. That's just my point. But in general, again, Dave Semenko, Marty McSorley, Dave Schultz, need one of those guys.
All right, I'm going to go really big picture here, Steve, with this next topic. I'm sticking with the WNBA, but it has a little bit to do with even what we saw in the NBA Finals last night from TJ McConnell. Man, there are great white hopes just sprouting up everywhere. And even if you go look over at the WNBA, which, again, I've been looking at, I came up with a list of here's their top 5 or 6 MVP candidates. And there's something, it's like, what do these tweets go, what do you notice? Well, this is one of those what do you notice tweets. The top candidate is Nafise Collier, who is the star player for the Minnesota Lynx, team that I believe is the best in the WNBA. Nafise Collier is having a great season. I think she's leading the league in scoring. I would put Caitlin Clark in the top 5 or 6. Sabrina Ionescu with the New York Liberty in the top 5 or 6. Breanna Stewart, New York Liberty in the top 5 or 6. Satu Sabali, she's with the Phoenix Mercury. They're having a good season. She's playing really well. Kelsey Plum, I believe, is the second leading scorer in the WNBA. She plays for the LA Sparks. They're not very good, but Kelsey Plum's the second leading scorer in the WNBA. Steve, I don't know if there's anything you noticed there, but I do. 4 of those girls have 2 full cups of sugar, and the other girls have a half cup of sugar or a cup of sugar. Collier and Sabali got white mothers, and again, so altogether there's 5 scoops of cane sugar in an allegedly black coffee league. The white women have invaded the WNBA and are dominating the WNBA, and I think there's a reason why. I think, honest to goodness, I think sports are being dominated by 2-parent family kids, period, end of story. And the era of the baby mama professional sports leagues is coming to an end.
Wow, so are we calling this the milk mob or the whiteout? That's an interesting one. I think seeing that list, Monica McNutt's head may explode. She may not be able to take. Anyone check up on her? Oh my goodness. So wait, that's an interesting question. Maybe for basketball, because what I've been reading and what I've been noticing is that the European players from that part of the world, the way they train, the way they are taught the game, there's not the AAU-ization of it yet. And you look at the NBA, there is certainly this perception. It is no longer the inner city blacktop game. It is becoming a club travel type of thing. You need specialized trainers, things of that nature. There might be something to that given what I've read about who is now producing NBA players at a rapid rate. Right? Cities like Seattle, it's no longer Chicago, right? Like it was 25, 30 years ago. I think football, though, is still pretty much single mother, single parent household for the most part. Again, this is just perception. I'd have to do the research on it. But Jason, I have a question, though. Should this be true? And let's say 2 months from now, it's still trending in this direction. Do you believe when it comes to the MVP race that there will be a Kendrick Perkinsization in terms of the candidate, that there will be dishonest type of agendas being thrown around to make sure that certain players don't win it?
Not this year, because unless Nafise Collier gets hurt, she's going to win it in a landslide. At this point, she'd be a unanimous MVP. There won't be any controversy this year. Now, will people try to, because again, this disrupts the Asia Wilson is the greatest player, and Asia Wilson, by the way, is from a 2-parent family, but Asia Wilson, it's going to disrupt the narrative that Asia Wilson is the greatest player in the WNBA, and she's the greatest thing the WNBA has ever seen, and so people will struggle with that. But I will say back to my original point about when you have to travel now to develop, to play in these summer AAU basketball tournaments, That's a two-parent experience. It takes, if someone's going to have to, hey, someone's got to travel with my son or daughter to go play somewhere or other, that's not a one-parent situation. And then the other point, and this is a big point for me, and I probably should have had TJ Moe in this conversation because it probably fits his personality a bit better. But when Catholic leagues and Christian organizations are being pushed out of sports, and police officers, the POW, police athletically, when everybody, there's all this hostility towards police, well, those were the people that developed the low-income baby mama kids. The Catholic leagues, the police athletic leagues, church leagues, that's who developed, who stood in the, oh, you don't have a daddy? There's a policeman or a fireman or some law enforcement official that's got a league to try to develop you, to get you on a path away from criminality or whatever. There's the church league. That's all being pushed out. And so now there is no safety net for the kids that don't have intact families, and the expense of traveling, the free time to travel, only two-parent families can handle, and again, it won't be talked about. The ramifications of the secularization of sports will not be talked about, and this trend of, even take LeVar Ball's kids, because I'm being really politically incorrect, but again, it's like, we love to talk about black girl magic. Well, what we're watching in sports is white mama magic. It's non-feminist mothers, and black women have decided to be feminists. They've decided to go totally in with the liberal, blah, blah, I'm a man and I don't need a man whole deal. And their kids are paying the consequences for that.
Jason, when it comes to Mr. Ball, though, I think he's made it very clear. I married my wife because she fit a physical profile. It wasn't just race or color. I mean,
and a personality one, yeah.
Yeah, and he basically said, okay, we could spawn athletes here. We're good. The incubator is good here. The other thing is, I was just thinking about this, Jason. You're right, because in the era of specialization where kids now by elementary school are basically told to choose one sport throughout the year. I see this a lot in baseball, but I'm sure it happens in basketball. I don't know if it could happen in football, though. You're right. If you're going to play a certain sports all year long and to travel, and it takes equipment, then you have trainers, it does help to have stability, and with stability comes economic means.
I'm not going to name names, but I've had friends of mine that heavily involved in AAU basketball, summer basketball with their kids. And they love to do it. They love to develop their sons. I'm talking, these friends of mine had sons. But one of the biggest headaches they had to deal with is when an athlete with some talent has a single mama who's in charge. And there's not two parents in charge. They're not dealing with a dad. They're dealing with a single mama. It complicates things very, very much. And it's a high maintenance situation. And it costs that coach money and time and just, so here you are, a married father who's coaching summer basketball in your spare time to develop your son, and you got a wife. And then your wife is listening to some single mama call their husband to talk about their son's basketball career. It's just not the most comfortable situation. And it leads to dysfunction. And so this whole system is collapsing on itself, and it's all damaging the single mama, single parent kid. And we're just not talking about it, but you can see it everywhere. Last night, I don't know if you saw, but when TJ McConnell has this great game, and his mom and dad are at the game, and then his dad came on NBA TV after the game, and his dad, TJ McConnell's got a sister that's in the WNBA and a younger sister that's headed to the WNBA. This is what two-parent families are producing, And, you know, the media has always loved to tell the story, oh, this black athlete, he never knew his dad. His dad was in jail, and his mama would throw the football with him, and blah, blah, blah. Them stories ain't coming around nearly as often as they used to.
Jason, okay, I know you must have seen this. When we were growing up, late 70s, 80s, even to the early 90s, I always wondered, when you'd watch a game, it always seemed to happen in a big nationally televised game, specifically a black player would make a big play. Go to the sideline, guy's getting some Gatorade, looks at the camera, hi, Mom. And I'd always think, well, wait a minute, what happened to the pops? Now I get it. There was never a player that said, hey, Dad, how you doing? Thanks. It was always, hi, Mom. Wow, it's pretty deep here. We got deep here today on Fearless, Jason.
There's a worship of women in the black community that people don't realize is toxic and killing the kids. But we talk about it here. And I'm going to keep it moving and talk about a guy that had a dad and has a father who's been very involved in his life and has had some success. But I'm circling back to Shedeur Sanders from yesterday, Steve, because two things happened. We learned since yesterday. Shedeur had his second traffic stop in the month of June for speeding. That 101 mile per hour stop, actually, like 10 days before, he had been stopped for going 91. This is not his first offense. And then I also saw, Steve, something that kind of surprised me, and Colin Cowherd is jumping ship on Shedeur Sanders.
What?
And I find it fascinating because Cowherd doesn't jump ship this strongly unless he has inside information or a source telling him, like, you maybe should jump ship here. So here's Colin Cowherd talking about why he's jumping ship on Shedeur Sanders.
So yesterday, Shedeur Sanders got caught speeding over 100 miles an hour. He's a quarterback. Mike Tomlin often says 2 is a trend. Can't screw up 3 or 4 times. 2 is a trend. Just 2 times. I'm not sure if I need 2 times when you're a young quarterback. 1 bad judgment turns me off. But I have now, in the last couple of months, 2 things that really turn me off with Shedeur Sanders, who I have championed. That cringy, awful, legendary draft room. Bro, you're a B prospect. You know, your dad's prime time, who led with his ego for years. You got to have a little self-awareness. I had more than one GM say, total turnoff. Come on, it's not the end of the world. It's a bad look. And now this. 100 miles an hour. Yep. All you fanboys, go ahead. Manziel, Baker, Deshaun Watson, defended it to the hilt on your Reddit account. Sorry. Don't minimize it. Don't pander. This is not good for a quarterback. Not good. As of today, and I've said this for years, I do not cling to opinions. New information, new opinion. I'm an airline pilot. We got a storm coming. Here's the latest radar. I'm changing my route, not flying headfirst into it. Legendary, 100 miles an hour. Judgment is 50% of being a quarterback. When you fall to 144 in the draft and then try to match that number behind the wheel of a car, yeah, I don't think the same. You ignored signs with Manziel and Baker. And apparently, based on the traffic violation, Shedeur was avoiding some signs too, the ones that say stop. I feel differently today. I'm not as high on him. I'm not sure he's mature enough. Now I'm going to have to like Kenny Pickett.
That's pretty powerful coming from Cowherd. And he didn't even know yesterday that there had been 2 traffic stops. But when I see Cowherd jump ship, I'm just telling you, particularly on someone as popular and as much traction there is, and the heat that you'll take for Dion for saying this, that's a warning sign that everybody should be like skeptical of Shedeur Sanders.
All right, but hold on. What does Rich Eisen have to say about all this? Where does he stand? But look, I respect Cowherd for one thing out of that whole thing. You are allowed to change your opinion. And I go through this all the time. I'll see a young fighter at the 4-round level, and I think, wow, this guy's going to be the greatest fighter pound for pound ever. 20 fights later, I'm thinking, he's not as good. Or like a young man that fought in Japan yesterday, Brian Norman, he struggled 3 fights ago, and I said it. Now my opinion is this guy might be the best welterweight in the world, so we are allowed to change our opinion. But let me just push back a little bit on this. Everything Colin said is correct. But even before all of this speed racer Shedeur Sanders stuff came out, that was all true back in April. All of it. Most rational, sane people did not need to see him go Mario Andretti to have all of a sudden, but now we flipped. And I'm actually surprised as I wind this up here, Jay. Are there accusations that Brian Daboll released all this, that he's the one feeding all the info? The whole notion of having to protect Shedeur, I think it's always been ridiculous. Brian Daboll does not care one way or the other about Shedeur Sanders, how he's perceived. He's not going to be his quarterback. He was never going to draft him. Certainly did not want to coach him. But again, I will be consistent. Come August, I'm going to be watching some Browns 3rd and 4th quarters, Jason. I cannot lie about that.
Here's what I'll say defending Cowherd. He, from his perch, where he does an interview-based show, and he needs to have people come on his show and consent to interviews. He needs access. And so he's not going to be as quick to jump ship as me or you. And me and you have been like, man, Shedeur's been raising red flags since Jackson State. And his dad's just a red flag, and I get it. Cowherd has been more cautious because he does an interview-based show, and it's not interview-based, but interviews are a big part of his show. And so he's been reluctant to jump ship on Shedeur because he'd prefer not to be wrong. But now he has seen enough to be like, you know what, F it. Yeah. I'm going to plant my flag here. This is what he's been doing it to quarterbacks from Baker Mayfield to Johnny Manziel. This is what he's been doing for his entire career. He considers himself a QB guru, and hey, you wear your hat backwards, you do this, you do that. I jump ship on you. Hats off for being honest. He's ahead of most people in the mainstream media.
Jason, I respect the guy that could say, you know what, I'm going to change my mind. My position has now changed. Meanwhile, sources tell me in Nashville that Cam Ward just drives 55 miles per hour in the middle of the freeway. He's turned signals early. And I said, and I've been told many times, he gives right away to everybody. See, that's why he was drafted number 1 there, Whitlock. That's you guys got a good one there in Nashville. Lucky you guys. Jeez. Let's go, Cam.
Hey, I want to play you just because you spent a lot of time in Vegas, and I don't know if Adrian Peterson was in Vegas when this popped off, but Adrian Peterson's playing poker with a group of guys, and it turns into a fist fight. Adrian Peterson, one of the greatest running backs in NFL history, in a backroom poker brawl. Let's play the clip. In the words of Kenny, you got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, you got to know when to walk away, you got to know when to run. You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for fighting when the dealing's done, Steve. There's no win here for Adrian Peterson. He's a superstar NFL legend. Even if he beats the brakes off this guy, and the guy may have deserved it, Adrian Peterson loses here. You just can't do it, AP. And I don't know what the guy did, and maybe he deserved it. I get it. but there's no win here for Adrian Peterson.
Couple things, Jason. Remember years ago, and it has to be at least a decade now, didn't Adrian get into some issues for over-disciplining his kids? Right? Right?
Yes. Yes, he
Those
did.
kids are probably pretty grown now, right? Getting into their teenage years at this point. I hope those kids don't see that footage, because I think one or two of them, if they still harbor any resentment, they may want a rematch. Based on what I saw, if I'm one of those kids, I would actually take my chances. The other thing, I know that Peterson's gone through some financial issues. Why is he even gambling? Honestly, that's the first thing I thought of. And the other thing is, Jason, there is nothing more humbling to see world-class athletes try to actually fight. And I've seen it firsthand at Wildcard, 10 Goose Boxing. They don't understand. Fighting is a skill. Athleticism comes in handy, but you still got to be able to fight first. Okay? And a couple years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but Le'Veon Bell and Adrian Peterson had a boxing match. Okay? And Le'Veon Bell, who's not exactly Larry Holmes, I think knocked him out. Guys, know your role. Bad look. Bad look. Not good. Not good.
I'm not going to go as far as to say AP looked bad in this fight or just a street fight. For a boxing expert like yourself, it looks bad. This looks like the normal barroom brawl that AP's waiting for his moment to overpower the guy, and he does
And
eventually.
Jason,
you don't think AP won this fight?
Hold on. First of all, AP looked like a super heavyweight compared to, I guess the guy looked kind of Latin. This guy was like a bantamweight. So you're struggling with the guy that's at least 3 weight classes below you. And I'm not sure I would have scored that 10-9 for Peterson. I thought that little guy kind of counterpunched well off his back foot. I mean, if you're going to be a football player,
He didn't land anything, Steve.
Oh, come on.
He didn't land anything. He didn't land. You know who you're the wrong expert for this. You know boxing. This is like, we need someone that spent like 5 to 7 years in prison to analyze this fight. Because that's what this is. This is just like a little jailhouse fight. Yeah.
Excuse me, Jason. In jailhouse fights, stuff happens. People actually bleed. People have actually gotten killed. They get shivved. They actually land, okay, their offensive attack. Sorry. That was a bad look. That's a bad look for Peterson. You were a world-class athlete, a Hall of Famer, or soon to be, one of the best I've ever seen. Oh, my goodness. That's a bad look, Jason. Don't soften that. Bad look.
We're going to have to go to the judges' scorecards. And so for those of you in the chat, for those of you in the comments, could you please score this fight on a from a jailhouse perspective, not from a boxing in the ring? Steve's an expert on boxing. I think he's being too hard on AP. I think if we went to the jailhouse scorecards, AP wins decisively here.
No.
This is a 10-8 round. A 10-8 round. Steve, final topic for you. Mark Cuban says that Kamala Harris wanted him to be a VP candidate, if not her VP. Let's watch Mark Cuban talk about it.
There was some green room gossip at MSNBC. You ready for this? You ready? I wouldn't tell you this if it wasn't like pretty good. Like somebody I kind of trust said that they asked you to send in VP vetting papers, and you said no, the list would be too long. Is that true? It is true. Why didn't you consider? I mean, you ended out there campaigning with her advisor.
Well, the second part of that is, my response was, I'm not very good as the number 2 person. And so the last thing we need is me telling Kamala, the president, that, no, that's a dumb idea, right? And I'm not real good at the shaking hands.
All right.
And kissing
Well, I don't know
babies.
about that, man. I was talking to Pete Buttigieg a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I wanted to, give you a time machine. We're gonna go back in a DeLorean. Like, what could we do different? So I want to ask you that same question, but also in the context, like, if it was you instead of Tim Walz, who the hell knows? I don't know. It feels maybe different.
I mean, obviously it would have been different. My personality is completely different than Tim's. My experiences, my backgrounds are completely different. I think I cut through the shit more directly. I'm not a politician. And so it would have been different, but it would have been awful. She would have fired
It would
me
have been
within
better
6
than
days.
present situation, you know?
Well, yes, that's true. But, I really thought she was going to win.
Here's
either way.
why I want to pick on that. And I know you don't want the clip here. You're like, we would have won if Mark Cuban was VP. And I get that. I know.
Right, of course.
And I don't even know if I believe that, but maybe. I think it would have been meaningfully different in a way that like picking Josh Shapiro or whatever wouldn't have been meaningfully different in a way that's kind of hard to predict.
Steve, would Mark Cuban have swung the election?
I don't think so, and I certainly hope not. I think the reality is this: no matter who the VP candidate would have been that would have been paired with Cam, she was such an ill-equipped, unqualified, unserious, unmitigated disaster, it would not have mattered. Think about this. If that whole Democratic Party was the Titanic, she was the perpetual iceberg. Do I believe that Cuban would have been more relatable than Weirdo Walls? Maybe to sports fans, but none of that's a surprise that he was in the running or being considered, given the way he was tweeting and basically campaigning for the Democrats about a year and a half ago. But no, I actually think that if it would have been Cuban, it actually would have made that campaign of Kamala Harris even less serious. You're going to get a sports guy. And again, he's a pretty accomplished business guy. I give him credit. But I just think that the whole Kamala Harris campaign, regardless of the number 2 banana, was doomed to fail. And thankfully it did.
Yeah, I think there's some delusion here in terms of, and you don't want to reduce everything to social media, but I'm not sure if anybody got ratioed more frequently and more consistently than Mark Cuban during the election cycle. This guy would tweet out something and he would get destroyed over social media. I think, no, he was not. He would have not been some silver bullet. I do find it interesting, though, that he was asked to be vetted, or they wanted to consider him, because again, it completely legitimizes my take that they clearly have done the same thing with Stephen A. Smith. And they just keep looking for personalities. That's their takeaway from Donald Trump, that it's just all a personality thing. If we get the right personality on here, it doesn't matter the message. They don't understand the Trump coalition as it relates to, it's all connected to, you go back to the Tea Party. There have been Americans complaining now for a solid 15 to 20 years. Hey, these politicians don't represent us. They don't represent us. They don't represent us. That we need to uproot this political system. And Donald Trump has ridden that wave. And I think if you look even right now, people are like saying, hey, Trump, as it relates to this Israel-Iran deal, you got to represent us. And if you don't, we will jump ship on you. And I don't think the Democrats have recognized that the Trump coalition is just a bunch of rebels that just want people, whether it's Donald Trump or anybody, to go against the establishment.
Yeah,
and Mark Cuban doesn't do that.
And the last thing I think America wants, and this is what the Democratic Party has turned into to a lot of people, is this Marxist, socialist, communist party. Last thing I want is a guy with the last name Cuban being second in charge. But I also think Cuban gets off on being like this orator from his ivory tower, talking about what he would do in concept. But then there's a reality to actually running the country. The bottom line is, when you are at the position of power, like the president, and again, his powers are actually limited. No matter what you do, 48% of the country is still going to be against you. And you have to be a tough guy. You have to have a thick skin to deal with it. That's one of the things that I do admire about Donald Trump. That guy knows what's being said out there, and he just goes about his business. The sense that I get about Mark Cuban and Stephen A. Smith especially is they sway with public opinion. And to me, that is not leadership. That is pandering.
Steve, great job. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week. For those of you that want some more of me, I got some great news for you. And for those of you that have been fascinated by the Karen Reed trial, Karen Reed, the woman in Massachusetts, accused twice, sent to trial twice for killing a police officer, John O'Keefe. It's a trial that fascinated the Northeast and the entire country. We got one of the prime people involved in that, Turtle Boy, Aidan Kearney. He's been on the show before but about other things, but on the Harmony channel, we got Turtle Boy coming on, and he's going to unpack everything that went on behind the scenes as it relates to the Karen Reed trial. Turtle Boy is just a social media influencer that if you follow the trial, you know exactly who I'm talking about. He's just a social media influencer that was like, hey man, there's some shenanigans going on here. Karen Reed's being framed, and he rallied a grassroots support that gave Karen Reed the financial standing to really fight the state of Massachusetts and these bogus murder charges against her, because by all accounts, and we'll let Turtle Boy unpack it, John O'Keefe's fellow police officers killed him. And she had to go to trial twice. The first trial ended about a year ago in some bogus hung jury when the jury wasn't really hung. They wanted to vote they wanted to go not guilty on all the serious charges. And so this week, yesterday, 2 days ago, she got acquitted of all the serious charges and got convicted of operating under the influence, operating a vehicle under the influence. But anyway, Turtle Boy is going to join me on the Harmony channel. Kevin Donahue is going to join that conversation as well because he has followed the trial very closely. So hop on over to the Harmony channel if you want a full breakdown of what went on with the Karen Reed trial from someone that was on the ground floor. Turtle Boy, criminal charges filed against him just for being a social media influencer and being a thorn in the state's side while they tried to convict this woman of a murder she did not commit. Join me over there in about 10 minutes at the Harmony channel, and we'll unpack one of the most interesting criminal justice cases in quite some time. We'll play tomorrow here, and we'll see you next week.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I wanna